Thank you also, Dr. Thomas, for allowing me to be a part of this platform. I am incredibly grateful. There's not many opportunities that I get to actually merge my ministry and my marketplace, and so I am eternally grateful for being able to do that. Dr. Sherry has asked me to talk about branding in the global marketplace and then also protecting that brand. That is a huge, huge, huge undertaking in the time that we have left. But what I will say is that we are going to be up for the challenge. I am so grateful for the speaker before me, because I was looking and he was like literally all in some points that I was going to talk about. I was just like, what more is there to say? I'm very excited about that, because what it tells me is that we are all in tune and we are all right in the rhythm and in the pulse beat of what God is saying to the marketplace right now. I remember being that person, right, who would always say, and Dr. Sherry and I have talked about this, I would have people say to me, you would make a lot more money if you please stop saying how grateful you are to God for this opportunity. You really need to stop saying that. And for a minute, like everybody else, it did cross my mind, right? And I'm grateful though for what the previous speaker said, because it lets me know that we can never, ever, ever get in that position where gratitude and graciousness to God is something that we're willing to compromise. And so I had to sort of address that before I jumped into my own presentation. I want to do it more like a fireside chat. And so I hope that is okay. But thank you. So there are certain principles when we are talking about branding ourselves, not just in the global marketplace, but in general. And I think we have to start with, what does that look like? In studying for this and preparing for this and some other things, I'll be honest, I was one of those why me, right? I read all the bios, I was looking at everyone else, and I'm like, how in the world did I make it here? And so when Dr. Thomas talked about your name going before you and being in rooms and people speaking about you and talking about you and this unmerited favor, it made me feel a lot better. What's interesting, though, is that it also made me think about when Jeremiah was basically saying, and not just Jeremiah, but everybody else, but he was basically saying, I'm too young for this. I'm not up for this. I'm not qualified. I'm not the person you want, right? And we know that there were other people, but one of the reasons that I love the story of Jeremiah is because I believe that God broke it down to us in that scripture when he said, look, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. And the reason I love that is because I believe that there was a conversation in eternity that God had with Jeremiah before he got here. And he said, okay, this is your clarion call, right? This is the purpose that I have placed on your life. And I'm saying that to say, because this is where the branding starts. The branding doesn't start when you get here and you decide that you're going to do a business or you're going to perform in your career, or you're going to be a government servant, right? I believe that branding starts in eternity before we even get there. I believe the same conversation that God had with Jeremiah, he's having with us. And so when we get here, we sometimes will get lost along the way. One of the major principles of branding is really about being authentic. Understand specifically who you are called to be. Understand where your lane is on the street. It may be a one-way street, right? You have to understand, who are you? And in business, we always talk about, okay, when you're creating your brand, what is your why? We always ask people, what is your why? What is the motivation, right? What is the motive behind the reason that you are putting this business together? What is that thing that tells you to do that? But not just what, who, right? What is it about you that gives you the reason to believe that this is where you should be in this point in time? And the reason that is important, and the reason that it's important about being authentic, is because now you're able to crowd out the noise. Because we all see the gurus, we all see everybody else saying, hey, so-and-so does it like this, so that's what I'm going to try. such and such has this 12-step program, so that is what I'm going to try. And so I challenge you to say, but where is God in the matter? Are your steps ordered in that direction? Because if your steps aren't ordered in that direction, even if it's a good thing, it is not a God thing. And quite frankly, we are not being good stewards over our purpose and over our mandate for being here. And so we must be authentic. We must understand our purpose. We must get in tune with that. And in order to do that, we do have to understand these kingdom principles that have been laid out in the book, right? In the Constitution that we call the Bible. I love this part of it because when we think about branding, in addition to being authentic, one of the principles that I love to teach is creating an environment where you are the obvious choice. For me, for many, many years, I would always say, okay, why would somebody come to me versus the gazillion other lawyers that are out there that are doing the same thing? What is that? What would be that thing? And I had a great opportunity to meet Johnny Cochran, who I'm sure that most of you know, or at least you've heard of. And I had that conversation and I said, you know, I would love to go out on my own, but there are so many other lawyers out there. What advice could you give me? Because, you know, when you get into the presence of someone like that, you only get that one shot and that one question and you have to take it. And I remember he looked at me and he said, well, think about it like this. If you're the best, does it matter how many other people are out? Does it matter how many other lawyers are there? And that literally has stuck with me for now. I'll age myself for now about 15 years. That was about 15 years ago, or maybe even longer now. And so what I gathered from that is it really doesn't matter who else is doing it, because once you tap into your purpose, once you understand that you have everything you need. And it's just like Dr. Thomas said, everything that you need is on the inside of you. That's how a seed works, right? When you drop a seed into the ground, everything that it needs is on the inside to become a full plant, to become a full bloom. We have to see ourselves that way. And so once we do that, then we have to say, okay, what's going to make us the obvious choice in the marketplace? You have to create that environment by your integrity, by your authenticity, by your ability to deliver at the level that your customer expects. You also have to deliver with excellence. This is one of the things that is always important. You must understand the social norms of the areas where you're working. For those of you that you know, you may do commerce primarily in your home country, but a lot of you are probably here because you want to find out about how do I move into the global marketplace? Well, one of the things that you first have to learn is what is usual and customary in the place that you're going. And you must operate within those, you know, within those norms. One thing that I realized when I started traveling abroad is that as an American, we can be quite arrogant. We believe that everywhere that we go, the rules should be whatever it is in America. And I learned very quickly that it is not so. And why am I saying that? I'm saying that because if you're going to go and operate business in the global marketplace, you need to understand what is going on there, and you need to be willing to adjust, and you need to be willing to yield to the rules and the norms of those areas so that you can be successful. That is the only way that is going to happen, because here's the thing. A brand is who you are. It is your identity. So you have to decide, do you want your identity to be something that is positive or something that is negative? You must make the commitment, I'll tell you, to having a positive brand, because when people see you in a positive light, they are more likely they already know you, but they are more likely to like and trust you, which we know is a big part of the customer buying decision. So in order to become the obvious choice, you have to have all of those things in place. You have to be and position yourself such that people will completely pass all of the other lawyers, right? And we're just using lawyers for now. They will completely pass all of the other lawyers and they'll say, you know what? I want to work with LeTonya because she has these qualities that I want to deal with, right? That speak to me, that resonate to me. The other thing too is you have to create your own kingdom, right? For those of us, we are all a part of the kingdom, and we have to understand kingdom economics, but we also have to create our own mini kingdoms, right? In the US, like we talk about, and we say, find your tribe. Where's your tribe? And your tribe are the people that you speak to. I know in ministry, we talk a lot about the frequency of the spirit, right? We talk about what is the frequency of the spirit in your hearing. Where is that? Are you in tune with the frequency of where God is right now speaking in your life, where God is leading you? Like, are you in tune with that? In business, it has to be the same way. You must be in tune to the frequency of your customer base, right? Of your target customers. You must be in tune. One of the analogies that I like to actually put with this is the dog whistle, right? If you guys are dog lovers like me, one of the things that I always noticed is that when I would take my dog years ago, I would take my dog out to a dog park. It could be 20 different owners, and we could all have the exact same dog whistle that we bought at the exact same place. But if I blow my whistle, only my dog would come. Now think about that. Only my dog would come. We have the exact same whistle from the exact same place, but only my dog would come. And the reason that that is important is because there are people, I believe, that are divinely assigned to us, both in ministry and in business, and their ear and their frequency is tuned to hear our voice. They are there for us. Our purpose is assigned to them to help them get to another place. If you are out trying to follow this guru, that guru, and you're doing what this person tells you to do, and you're not squarely walking in your purpose, I believe that that is going to dull your dog whistle, right? You're not going to know where your people are, because guess what? You are not blowing an authentic sound. You are blowing and taunting the sound of other people. And so this is why a lot of people are not making it to the level that they should make it, because they are blowing someone else's dog whistle versus their own. So that's the other thing. Another thing, or the next step, is building solid relationships through networking. Building solid relationships through networking. I am big on networking. Dr. Sherry will let you know I am not afraid to reach out to just about anybody. This is how I met her. And I'm not afraid. I am totally unafraid to just reach out and say, hey, this is who I am. I would love to connect with you. And here's why. You have to position yourself to be willing to make the ask. But here's the thing that you must have. You need to come with something in your hand, right? And I'm not talking money. You need to have something to offer. What value are you bringing to the person that you are coming to, right? If you look at biblically, right, what was the first thing that people would ask when they realized that they need to go see the prophet? They had to figure out, what are we going to take him? Where is the gift for the prophet, right? When they went to see the king, where is the gift that we are going to take? You must get that really in your spirit. And I know for those of us that are Westerners, we don't think about this because this is really an Eastern concept, right? We're not brought up in kingdoms. We don't even study them in terms of customs, but you must understand that, because when you are coming to get something from the king, to get something from the prophet, you need to come bearing gifts. You need to come bringing something something of value. And you have to do that as you go through business. You must be bringing something to the table of value. And this will allow you to enter into these networks. It will allow you to build solid, authentic relationships that can be fruitful for you down the road. Number 5, you need to always provide top tier customer service. This goes back to, again, understanding the customs, understanding the cultural norms, understanding how does things operate in these other places. The other part of that is have a policy and procedure in place. A lot of times, as long as your customer knows what's going on, the customer will be happy, right? If you know that it's going to take you 3 weeks to do something, you need to let the customer know it's going to take at least 3 weeks for this to happen. That's also, guys, a byproduct of honesty and integrity. You need to operate an ethical business. You need to operate an ethical practice. And so when we're thinking about branding, right, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to be known as being honest? Do we want to be known as being ethical? Do we want to be known as being efficient? Of course we do. Of course we do. And so because of that, we have to plan for these things out front. When COVID hit, there were a lot of people that literally were thrown in disarray because they had a problem with their supply chain, right? They couldn't get products to customers. You had some people, though, they couldn't get the products to customers, but then they also didn't have an efficient enough system to be able to properly notify the customer that this was going to be a problem. So I want to just quickly go over our branding principles that we've talked about today. First, number one, be authentic. Number two, become the obvious choice in the marketplace. Number three, create your own kingdom. Number four, build solid relationships through networking. And number five, always provide top tier customer service. Always, always, always provide top tier customer service. I want to shift a little bit because we've talked about branding. I want to now talk about protecting that brand, because once you create this brand in the marketplace, you have to really think about it as your baby, right? And so for those of us that are parents, or if you know anybody that have been parents, the biggest thing that they want to leave with when they, in addition to the baby, is that they want to leave with that baby's birth certificate, right? They want that piece of paper that is saying, this is my child, right? This child belongs to me. I am the mother, I am the father, and this is that thing that proves that this is our baby, right? People don't think about that in business. I can tell you right now, like I always have people say to me, well, how much is it going to cost to do the trademark? Or how much is this going to set me back, right? This is what we say. You have to really ask yourself, how committed are you to protecting this business? Because one of the biggest mistakes that people think is that if I protect my intellectual property in my home country, it's protected everywhere. That is not so. That is not so, right? If you are in America and you have a patent or a trademark or a copyright, it is not instantly protected in some other countries. Now, there are some agreements, there are some treaties. I'm not going to get too deep into those things for purposes of today's discussion. But what I will say is there are some mechanisms through which you can register, right? And then your intellectual property will be recognized in these other countries. But here's the thing. You also have to know what countries you are wanting to do business in, because especially for patents and some of the higher level intellectual property options, you have a small window. You may have about 1 year from the time it's granted, for example, here in the US, to then also protect it under some of these agreements in this other country. Why is that important? Because when we look at the digital marketplace, if I put something out into cyberspace today, it's all over the world by tomorrow. So this is why you have to understand these time frames, because a lot of people say, well, if I do it here, isn't that the same as doing it in the UK? Or isn't that the same as doing it in Canada? And the answer is absolutely not. There's no such thing as a worldwide patent, trademark, copyright. Again, every single country has their own intellectual property laws. For those of you that are looking at doing international work where you will be getting international intellectual property rights, you need to have an attorney in the other country working on your behalf. So for example, if you're in Barbados and you want to get a patent or a trademark here in America, you must have a US based attorney working on your behalf. You must have a representative here working on your behalf for that filing, right? To make sure that filing is properly filed here in the United States. You also want to make sure that you are aware of the laws in not just your country, but in the country where you're going to do business. You also need to be prepared that the other country, quite frankly, it could be someone that's already doing something similar, right? Again, there are so many brilliant ideas it's a high degree of likelihood that someone else may be doing something similar, or under the laws of that other country, it just may be a different criteria than it is in your home country. But these are all the things that you need to know before you start to flood that other country with this particular product. Why am I saying that? Because what you don't want, for example, is a US based company to now sue you for infringing on their intellectual property, only for you to have to come back and pay them damages off of your profits that you've gotten. And you really did this, not really to be malicious, but you did this so that you could operate in another country. It is absolutely crucial that you get this. So in the time that I have left, I want to talk about some tips, right? I want to give you about 5 tips for intellectual property owners. The first tip, again, work with a qualified intellectual property attorney. This person can help you create a strategic plan for your filings. This will also ensure that you don't miss the deadlines in the opposite country. Very, very crucial that you do that, because the timelines and the deadlines are going to be different. The way, for example, that we even compute time is totally different. There is a legal standard of computing time. And a lot of people outside of the legal community, they don't understand that. 6 days to a layperson is totally different when it's 6 days to an attorney. And if you've dealt with an attorney, they're going to say, oh, are we talking about business days? Are we talking about calendar days? Well, what about holidays? Do we skip over the holidays? So now you got 3 or 4 different ways of computing time. And so although that may seem trivial, when it comes down to who filed first, when it comes down to whether or not you made or you missed a deadline, that 1 or 2 day or that holiday can make the difference between you being approved and you being denied, you being timely and you being untimely. So it's definitely the thing that you want to think about. Number 2, incredibly crucial. You want to ensure that you are working with a reputable, right? A reputable foreign entity. So for example, if you're manufacturing a product, you want to make sure that if you are working with a foreign entity, and foreign just means outside of your country, you want to make sure that that vendor, that manufacturer is reputable. You want to make sure that you have the proper contracts in place. And you also want to make sure that you understand what it will take for you to enforce those contracts, just in case they don't live up to it. Or you also want to make sure that you understand what it takes for you to fight a breach, for you to get fulfillment. All of those things, again, are different based on the country. This is why you have to deal with a reputable manufacturer, but this is also why you want to make sure that you are very careful and selective in choosing the right legal counsel in the country where you are going to be operating, right? That foreign country in which you're going to be operating. The other thing too, I mentioned it, but I'll just say it again. Make sure that you work with qualified United States or foreign counsel to draft whatever contractual language that you have, and make sure that it is enforceable. You can put anything down on paper, but if the laws of that country says that you can't contract to do this, that is actually a clause that really has no teeth. And this is why you want to make sure that you're working with someone that is well-versed in that particular area. Number 4, record your United States trademarks and copyrights with the Customs and Border Patrol, right? Or Customs and Border Protection, which is another U.S. agency. The reason that you want to do that is that they are able to, and they are trained to detect counterfeits. Very important that you do this, especially if you are a product-based business, right? And you know that you're going to be doing some cross-border import, export. You want to make sure that you are registered there. So if anything comes in that is not under the name of the company that is registered, they will flag it, they will find it. It will help you when it comes down to counterfeits. The last thing I want to just leave with you is really about being strategic, right? You know, you don't just register it just because it's in vogue and now everybody's getting trademarks or everyone is getting copyrights, or you have this invention and now you may want to get a patent. You have to be strategic about how you do it. especially in foreign markets. You must be strategic about how you do it. You want to make sure that it's the right business decision for you, because here's the thing. Sometimes there are a lot of violations in these countries. The rules around manufacturing and things like that are different. And I know in the US, oftentimes they will hold you to a US standard, even though you may have followed the standard in the country where you have manufactured. That is something that you have to be really mindful of when you think about protecting your brand in the marketplace, right? And so what are we talking about? The brand is your baby, right? We've talked about your birth certificate, which is your patent, your trademark, your copyright. It is the paperwork that legally says you are the owner, right? You are the parent of this particular company, this particular product, this particular service, right? We've talked about the other things, right? I'll just call it the babysitters, right? We've talked about the lawyers, right? And the other people, the daycare center is the manufacturer, right? Before you send your child to a daycare center, you want to make sure, for those of you that use daycares, you want to make sure that they haven't had any type of child abuse allegations, right? You want to make sure that their staff is competent when you are entrusting your child with this particular entity. You must take the same care when you are looking at your business. Again, I know it sounds trivial, but that's always a good one, right? Because no matter who you're talking to, people really understand, like, wow, I really get the daycare situation, right? And so I want to encourage you guys, lean into your purpose. Make sure that you pray, make sure that you tune your spiritual ear, and that you are listening to what God is saying in the moment. Where are you supposed to be right now? Where is God working? And meet him there. And I guarantee you that if you do that, you will always, always, always come out on top. So much, Dr. Thomas, for this opportunity. And I look forward to our next speaker.